Hi, everybody. In this module, we are talking about climate change. Before we get into the details of climate change itself, I want to take a brief moment to comment on the topic of climate change within the wider context of environmental communication. Even though the existential threat of climate change looms large, I want to point out that the topic of climate change is only one part of environmental communication. Environmentalists were already hard at work on other issues before climate change became part of the public consciousness. Rachel Carson published her landmark book, Silent Spring, which exposed the dangers of pesticides and launched the modern environmental movement in 1962. In 1970, we get the first Earth Day. Dr. Seuss published The Lorax in 1971, and we get the famous pale blue dot photo of the Earth from space, from 3.7 billion miles away, showing how fragile the Earth is in 1990. Meanwhile, Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth didn't come out until 2006. Of course, scientists knew about climate change well before that, but my point is, even though climate change looms large in our imaginations today, like a T-Rex in the rearview mirror, the environmental movement and the academic field of environmental communication have existed for decades and have addressed many environmental issues, not just climate change. Okay, our readings for this module are about the tricky task of communicating about climate change. In this lecture, I want to focus on the concept of super wicked problems. The reading defines a wicked problem as one that lacks a simple or straightforward response. In this context, wicked does not mean bad. According to the Common Social Change Library, the term refers to a problem that is particularly difficult to solve because of, quote, incomplete, contradictory, ever-changing, and hard to recognize requirements. Basically, it's something that people think either can't be fixed or that has no single solution. It might be that the problem is big enough to require collective action of many people or groups, but there is no apparent way to coordinate those people or groups. As the deep dive for this week puts it, there's no single boss of the planet. And in some cases, the very people who want to solve the problem are also among those causing the problem in the first place. Super wicked problems often have a high degree of social complexity, involve interdependent systems, and, as Cameron Tonkinwise, the director of design studies at Carnegie Mellon School of Design, has pointed out, it's often difficult even to define where exactly the problem in question starts and ends. Examples of super wicked problems include things like nuclear weapons proliferation, artificial intelligence governance, global pandemics, and the housing affordability crisis. Climate change has been widely recognized as a super wicked problem as well. Now, I should mention, among those who take climate change seriously, there are those who argue that it is wrong or unhelpful to classify climate change as a super wicked problem because they argue the framing is too pessimistic and contributes to inaction. I agree that doomer rhetoric should be avoided, but if we want to contribute to solving a problem, it's important to first try to wrap our minds around it. One of the features of this particular problem that make it super wicked is the paradoxical time scale. On one hand, it's urgent. Climate change has been called the first time test humanity has ever had to take. On the other hand, it's a slow-rolling problem. We're talking about geological time, and humans have environmental generational amnesia. As the reading points out, on a personal level, we don't know if what seems normal to us would have struck our great-great-grandparents as highly unusual. Climate change fits the criteria for wickedness in lots of other ways as well. Those who cause the problem also seek a solution: humans. Central authority is weak or non-existent. The sheer scale seems overwhelming. There's also the concept of irrational discounting, which pushes our responses into the future. And the problem has become tightly linked to identity and politics. So disagreement can feel like an attack on who someone is rather than on an idea. Just because there's no magic wand to solve these problems doesn't mean they can't be managed. Many strategies have been formulated. I want to mention two of them here, and then give an example. First, any strategy for managing a big problem has to involve collective action. This is why communication is important. Communication is how we coordinate. Collective action includes a range of people and groups who share common values or goals. Another important approach is to break down the problem into chunks. This makes it less overwhelming and can lead to meaningful action. No one policy or action can solve the whole problem, but a series of targeted policies and actions can go a long way toward addressing it. Finally, I'd like to hold up the UN Sustainable Development Goals as an example of what is possible when a group takes super wicked problems seriously and decides to address them head on. The Sustainable Development Goals are a set of 17 global goals adopted by all UN member states to guide the world toward a more just, prosperous, and environmentally sustainable future. Check out the links in the transcript. At their core, the SDGs are a shared roadmap for tackling humanity's biggest interconnected challenges, things like poverty, inequality, climate change, health, education, and peace. All right, today we've talked about climate change's place in the context of environmental communication, climate change as a super wicked problem, and strategies for addressing such problems. Thanks for listening.